Bollocks! Hello, welcome to another player ratings for the Always Smiling Faces YouTube channel. My name's Emil, reflecting on a 3-0 loss at home to West Ham United. What a shame, eh? Look, we'll get into it, shall we, straight away, just so we don't have to linger on these thoughts. Martin Dubravka starting off in goal. You know, I think it's hard to judge him, given how much he was exposed, really, to all of the goals that West Ham scored. You can't expect him to stop everything. He still was able to make a few good saves, despite the performance of the entire team. But it was a real shame that Anderson had to go through his legs for the third goal. A little bit embarrassing for Dubravka. Like I say, he made a good save from Arnautovic, but he couldn't do much else. I'm just going to give him a 6 this week. Manquillo, I was surprised to see him in over Clark, actually, given the way Clark played against Burnley. In fairness, I do think he made some good attacks down the wing when he got forward, but when it came to defending, we were just well caught out. You had people like Snodgrass playing out of the skin, and he just couldn't deal with it. Hopefully Dummett can be back as soon as possible, because Manquillo, I'm afraid, just isn't good enough, especially when he's kind of playing out of position. Going to give him a 4. Fernandes, I would say the best of a bad bunch this week, certainly in defence. I still think he did well at the back, but he did have a lot to deal with. The first real threat from a team that we've faced in the last 4 games, and it did show. And he still seemed calm, he still seemed to have that good presence at the back, but as much as I want to try and say he was okay, he seemed to be chasing the West Ham players a little bit, and given he was captain, he wasn't terrible, but give him a 6 this week for Fernandes. Schär, it's probably the worst game he's had so far in this run he's been in the team. Not a disaster, but a few errors at the back. He does like to get forward, mind, doesn't he? He's not afraid of taking the ball out. He intercepted one of the attacks that West Ham made, and he had a run right up the pitch. He also had a pretty unnecessary shot later on when he was kind of coming down the wing, and maybe could have done a bit more to get it into the box, but you know, there was one really bad ball. He put it back to Dubravka, which could have cost us. It put us under pressure. And I know that it didn't go in, and we did still lose 3-0. But things like that sometimes can cost you more, especially when we've got a decent goal difference. It's really taken a hit this week, hasn't it? He gave away some free kicks when he was frustrated. He was well beaten for the third goal. Just going to give Schär a 5 this week. Yedlin didn't have the game that he had against Burnley. I said he was most improved in that game, and he's kind of gone back to the player that we saw when he was playing against Bournemouth, I think. Good going forward, we know this, but he should have done better marking Hernandez for the first goal. He just wasn't looking the right way, was he? 2 of the goals, really, where Yedlin wasn't doing anything. He just didn't cope. I'm going to give Yedlin a 3. It just wasn't good, really. Kennedy, this is, again, a not really great performance. I don't really know what he did. Kennedy, when I was watching it, just seemed to go missing for majority of the first half. He wasn't even in that central role where you can kind of go, well, he wasn't in that position that he likes to play. He didn't do anything, and I don't know if it was the fact that Manquillo and him weren't right together, but just had maybe one weak shot that was wasted. No surprise that he was subbed off. Going to give Kennedy a 4. Shelvey came on and didn't really do anything to change the game either, so it begs the question, you know, Shelvey, are you really fighting for this place now that Key's taken it? A 4 from Shelvey. I would have expected him to try maybe more things, to say, look, I'm the right person to be in the team. Never mind, anyway. Key. I think that Key was the best player on the pitch, but sadly, amongst the team, it just wasn't working, was it? Most touches, still showing that he's kept his place and why he's kept his place. Most of West Ham's threat kind of came down the wing, so it wasn't really Key's fault. And honestly, just because Key was probably playing better in the middle still and had that consistency, I'm going to give him a 7 because I think he was the best on the pitch. Diarme, though, on the other hand, it wasn't the game he had against Burnley, which is why we're so hot and cold with his performances. Frozen out of the game, really, unable to impact anything, and did waste a good chance where it fell to him. And although it looks like he didn't know much about it, maybe he should have known a bit more about it, especially when we were desperate to try and get something into the goal. Although that being said, you know, Fabianski did have a good game against us. However, we'll get to that. Similar to Key for Diarme, he didn't really have all of the threats to deal with, but not as good. I'm going to give him a 5. Richie, I think he had a really good game. It was a shame he came off, and he did well to attack the game. He seemed really fired up, but that of course led to him getting a yellow card. He was a little bit too fiery, especially when he knew that it would lead to a suspension. So unfortunately, we're not going to have Richie against Everton. How much that's going to affect the game, I don't know, but I'm a little bit worried when we've not got Richie in the team. He did come off, going to give him a 6, and Atsu came on. He tried a few shots. They didn't really do much. They went straight to the keeper, and you know, maybe some of those he could have passed on to the strikers. It just didn't really happen. Atsu, you know, he's creative, but I don't think he's the right level for the Premier League. Going to give him a 5. Perez, right, okay. I think I was fully in the Perez isn't very good camp for this game. I always like to give players the benefit of the doubt, but he missed the opportunities that he had, and that ultimately lost us the game. It wasn't his entire fault, but you need to take them, otherwise this is what happens. We lose heavily at home, or we lose games where we shouldn't lose them. He just lost confidence as the game went on. That being said, cheering him when he comes off, how man, seriously? It's just unnecessary, really. And yeah, I mean, I'm still going to give him a 3 because it was a pretty rubbish performance. And you know, like I said in the last ratings video, when Muto's back, he has to get straight into that team. Whufc came on and didn't really have to do much. Wasted a really good cross chance, but you didn't really expect Whufc to turn the game around, did you? Rondon, now, at times, I think Diop, Zabaleta, Balbuena, they had him closed off entirely. West Ham really did have a good defensive game. It was very tight at the back. Rondon had the best opportunities, I think, more so than Perez, because Perez kind of just took the first thing he could get. Rondon was actually there and just a smidgen away on some of them. One just before half-time, one where he was maybe like a half yard away from the ball. One just shot straight at the keeper, so it wasn't a great game for Rondon when we needed goals. 5 for him this week. All in all, the team looked demoralised. You know, we just lost to goals as well, though, from players that West Ham have spent a lot of money on. I mean, Anderson, if he costs 35 million, then he should be scoring goals week in, week out. Hernandez, the same. You expect it. And it's a shame. We didn't play terribly, but it was just the conversion of the chances that we couldn't get right. 3-0, I think, does look worse on paper, but a bit of a back-to-reality moment for us, given that we just won 3 games on the bounce. It's not the end of the world. I really think there's a bit of an overreaction going on Twitter, but that's also to do with this whole fight over who was booing, who was kicking off at people who came in late. I think it's just it's one of those sickening weekends for Newcastle fans. Everton is going to be a really tough game away from home. Let's not beat around the bush. They are having a really good season, and to be honest, let's just see what happens. Keep your fingers crossed. The lads on the podcast will have all the build-up, and in the meantime, keep checking the YouTube channel for all of the new videos that we're doing. It's not just that, we've got our FIFA run that Aaron's doing, where Newcastle are playing a lot better than we are in the league. So if you want a little bit of a light relief, go and watch that. And in the meantime, like, subscribe, and we'll see you for the next game.